Hi everybody in Research Methods, Psych 290. Today we do section 6 of the reading packet so that we will be prepared for the next exam, which is exam number 2. As you will see here, there is a few different topics that we cover. Scales, also known as levels of measurement, types of measurement, and designing your instrument. So let's get started. First of all, there are 4 different scales of measurement. Speaking of scales, maybe I can reduce this a little so you can see all 4 at one time. So, nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. In my opinion, the first one and the last one are more obvious, whereas the middle two, ordinal and interval, are easier to get confused. Nominal starts with the letter N, and so does this word, name. That's all nominal is naming your subjects. Are you saying that you are either male or female? In a high school, that you are either freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? That you're a resident of Chandler or Gilbert or Queen Creek or Tempe? All of those things identify you only by name. Same thing with race and ethnicity, sexual orientation. A lot of things in life are like that. Ordinal. Think this in your head and you will probably never get it wrong, or at least I hope. Rank order. When you see ordinal, think that. Rank order. So, is what is known about you, or your subjects for your study, just their rankings? 3rd place, 5th place, 2nd from the bottom? Well, whatever it is, as long as you know what the rank is of that person, that is ordinal. So again, think rank order. Now, the most confusing one, in my opinion, is interval. Interval refers to a number score. However, there are 2 problems with it. One, you don't know exactly what that number score is because there is no absolute 0 to compare it to. So if I told you that you scored 3 points higher than someone else, well, I guess that 3-point number is relevant, but not really, because you don't know how the other person did. Interval. So that's the most confusing because it's the most abstract, if you ask me. Ratio, an exact number score as it relates to an absolute 0. So let me give you an example of all of these so that it makes more sense. This is for online classes, maybe a little more confusing because in-person classes we could discuss it, well, in person. So I could give you an example in class of made-up test scores, and if someone said, how did I do? And I said, above average, outstanding, stellar, exemplary, all of those things are just names, but it doesn't tell you anything else about the person's test score. If I said your score was 3rd highest or 5th from the bottom, rank order. Ordinal. Interval. You scored 3 points above the average. You scored 2 points below the cutoff to move on to the next level. None of those things really explain what your score means. So it gives you a little bit of information, but not enough. So the most precise one scientifically would have to be ratio. If you scored 43 out of 50, well, that's an 86%. I understand what that means. So ratio is the most scientifically precise, the most exact at the same time. Now, sometimes you can't help it. If you're male or female, if you're black, white, Asian American, whatever, nominal is really the only choice if we're talking about something that only has a name to it. Other things in life only have a rank, and you know that you came in 2nd place or 5th place. Interval, there are times when that's the only choice. Whereas if all you know is how you compared to the top, bottom, or middle, or another person's score, ratio, though, if possible, is the most scientifically precise and exact. So, 2 examples, not to mess you up in any way, but just so this makes a little bit more sense. If you're an athlete and you play sports and you get uniform number 8, that is actually nominal. Isn't that weird? It seems like 8 is a number that you could compare to 0, but in that case, it is really just a way of naming you. It doesn't mean that you're half as good as player who wears number 16. Doesn't mean you're twice as good as the person who wears number 4. It's really a name. Uniform numbers in sports. Now, here's another tricky one, just so you know. Temperature as we measure it in Fahrenheit, that's the most typical way to measure temperature in the United States. It's actually interval. But wait a minute. On a hot summer day, it's 112 degrees. Isn't that a ratio? It's actually interval. How come? Remember the criteria of there being an exact 0? That would not be the case, would it? Because 0 degrees does not mean a lack of temperature. There are negative degrees too. So, true story. One time I'm in class and I described that, and a student raised his hand and he goes, but what if we're measuring temperature in Kelvin? Because 0 in Kelvin, molecules stop moving, and it's the same as negative 400 and something degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm like, you know what, buddy? Too much information. That's not what we're talking about. So perhaps in Kelvin that would be different, but if you're measuring it in Fahrenheit like we do mostly in the United States, you're talking about an interval. So, nominal, ordinal, interval ratio. I think the middle two are the most confusing, especially interval. Moving right along, those are scales of measurement, types of measurement. You can measure things in an empirical way, a covert way, or self-report. So let's go over these and not make them more complicated than they need to be. Empirical means anyone with reasonably good senses can detect that number. Are there 23 people in the room? Are there 17 people who are sitting down and 6 that are standing up? That's empirical. 4 people are talking at once. If there's a way to accurately measure that, that would be empirical. It really does exist, and I can measure it. Covert. It still really does exist, but think of this word. This is a good memory trick. Covert, covered. I need to uncover what the truth is. What is your knowledge level? What is your IQ? What is your body temperature? What is your cholesterol level? I want to measure what is really true, but in a way that I uncover the truth. That's different than the third and final one, self-report, asking people what they think or what they feel, even if it's in a number score format. See, we talk about Likert here, 1932. He's the one who invented that on a scale of 1 to 9, on a scale of 1 to 5. That's the Likert scale. He invented that as a way to put a number score to a self-report measure. But still, you're not trying to uncover what really exists, nor are you trying to measure what you can see or hear. You're asking somebody to self-report, to describe their own symptoms, their own beliefs, their own thoughts, or their own feelings. Self-report. So, which one are you going to use in your paper? Well, I guess it depends on what your topic is and what your hypotheses are. Empirical means that you are going to measure something that really exists. Oh, I had 33 people turn in their surveys. I had 17 people who were wearing, I don't know, open-toed shoes, something that you could really legitimately measure. But covert, you have to uncover their knowledge level. Uncover something that really is true. So what I'm guessing you're probably going to use in your paper, because most people do, self-report. Especially Likert scales are just so darn easy, because then you will be able to do a correlation, a t-test, one of each, or 2 of one, or 2 of the other. That's what's required for your paper. Those are the 2 kinds of statistics that we are going to use for our papers. So you're already beyond the point where you should have a topic and hypotheses. Remember, you can change those at any time, however. We're now going to talk about how to use Likert scale self-report measures to make a good survey. So the next page, it's not in your reading packet, but I did include it on the Canvas page. When you click on this module, hopefully you will see it. So first of all, requirements. A paper pencil is the easier way to do it, or online survey, if that's your skill set, with at least 2 demographics questions that you're asking of people. Like what? Well, you could ask them their age, their gender, their year in college, race or ethnicity, city of residence. Is your paper on religion, marital status? Anything that you want to ask them, we call demographics, because then you're going to be doing some comparisons. Perhaps male to female, or older to younger, or different races or different religions. So that's the first part. A couple of demographics questions. Then, what are your survey questions? Here's the tricky part. I've had so many students just not get this right away, and eventually they do. It has to add up to something. There's a reason why statistics is either a co-requisite or prerequisite for this class. You either have to have it before you take research methods or at the same time. The reason is you use statistics in this class. That's why. So, here are some questions that add up to something. However, you will notice one of these questions just doesn't fit with the others. Look at these 5 questions real quick. From 1 to 5, with 5 always being true and 1 is not true at all or anything in the middle. I enjoy alcoholic beverages. I spent a great deal of time and money on alcohol. I spend a great deal of time and money drinking alcohol. Alcohol does not negatively impact my life. I wish I had never started drinking. Do you see one question in there that doesn't go with the others? I do. It would be the 4th one. Oh, that wasn't smart. Let me get back to where we were. It would be the 4th one. So I would say this one right here. I want to do something with that question so that they all add up. Whereas 5 always means, yeah, alcohol is just a big negative part of my life, and 1 always means that it's not. So therefore, let's scroll down. Look at this tip here. I could easily change that to alcohol negatively impacts my life. Whereas it used to say, alcohol does not negatively impact my life. If I change the wording just a little bit, now 5 always means that it's a problem. If a person scores 5 on everything, that means that, yeah, this is a big deal and a big problem. But if a person always scored a 1, well, wouldn't that mean that alcohol is not a problem for this person or anything in between? I want all my questions going the same direction. Now, I don't want to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but in real life, there's a concept called reverse scoring. Maybe you throw one question in there that's backwards, and the algorithm on your program that you're using automatically reverses the score, where a 5 really means a 1 and a 4 really means a 2. I wouldn't go there if I were you. That's way too complicated to score, takes way too much time. You just want to be able to add the numbers and do a correlation or a t-test. Now, how many questions should you put in your survey? There's not an exact number, but can you see the obvious problem if you ask too many or too few questions? You only ask 2 or 3 questions that you're going to add up to a number score? Well, maybe that doesn't tell you enough about a person. But what if you ask too many questions, like more than 20 Likert scale questions? You know what's going to happen? Your people are going to get bored and disinterested, and they're going to be like, I don't want to take this survey. They'll either scribble down anything and not even look at it, or they won't complete it and turn it back into you. So therefore, I would recommend a reasonable number of questions, maybe between 5 and 15 at the most. I wouldn't do too many more or less than that if you want a good survey. So remember, You are either going to correlate numbers with each other or do a t-test. One group score on your survey versus another, like male versus female. But what would a correlation be? Well, everybody would be part of the same group, but it would be perhaps their age and their survey score. Does that correlate in any way? Are older people scoring higher than younger people? That would be a correlation, not splitting them into two separate groups. But you do need two hypotheses, so you could do one of each. Male versus female on your survey score, and age versus survey score as a correlation. You could do that. In fact, that would be quite common. So, next couple of pages are examples. Maybe I better rotate this one. So, first of all, this is one that a student did that I could see some problems with it. I asked her if I could use it to make improvements to show students what not to do. That was probably offensive that I said that, huh? So this is good. Demographics here, male versus female, that could be an independent t-test. But what if she wanted to do the whole survey score compared with age? That would be a correlation. Maybe older people score higher or lower than younger people. That would be interesting. Or correlating number of children that a person has with their survey score. That would also be a correlation. So with this third one, how old is your oldest child? What does that have to do with anything? It tells you how long you've been parenting, doesn't it? That would be a number score to correlate with a survey score. So I mentioned a minute ago that there's a problem here, and there is. If you read all 5 of these questions, it does not add up to anything. You want 9 to be completely true about whatever your topic is, and you want 1 to be completely not true. So I actually asked the student, tell me what your topic is. Oh, I believe that parents shouldn't spank children. Well, a number 1, a 9 would be, I'm comfortable with the discipline I use. And number 3, spanking, well, I'm comfortable with that. But wait a minute. Number 2, timeout and grounding seems to work. And number 4, just talking with my kids works. And number 5, praising works. This does not add up to anything. You want a 9 to be always, yeah, I spank and that's what I do. Or maybe you want 1 to be that in every question. So you have to think of a way that all your questions add up to something about the person. So let's say you're doing it on aggression. Gee, all of your points better be high scores are more aggression, or perhaps the opposite, as long as it adds up to something. So let me rotate again and show you another example. Oops, it's upside down, isn't it? I can fix that. This is one that I made and I used, so it must be good, right, if I made it? Well, here is what we had. Employees of a local agency, they work with developmentally disabled adults, called ARC. They took programs that we had at Chandler Gilbert for a developmental disability certificate. Not a college degree, but a certificate of completion. So a 9 is totally true. So look at these questions here. What does it mean? A 9 means, oh my goodness, being in this program and taking these classes, it's really made me a better employee, more knowledgeable. I'm so glad that I did it. I'm hoping to get promoted. My ability levels are higher. My knowledge is higher. 9 is always the same answer. Whereas 1, no, I wish I didn't do it and it didn't help me at all and this was worthless and it hasn't gotten me anywhere. You see the 3-hole punch there? It kind of blocked out where it should say number 1, but you get the idea. A 9 always means the same thing, and a 1 always means the same thing. So, in some ways, this survey is better than the one I just showed you, but this page did not have the demographics in it. We did ask these employees, are you male? Are you female? Do you work full-time? Do you work part-time? What is your age? So those are all the things that we could use to correlate or to do a t-test, comparing one group to another. So that is it for section 6. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns.